The moment the clock passes midnight, the world slows down, distractions disappear, and I step into a space where only discipline exists. Because I understand that the night is not for rest alone. It is for those who are willing to push beyond limits while everyone else sleeps. The gym feels different at this hour. Quieter, heavier, more focused, and I move through it with intent, knowing that every repetition I perform here carries more weight, more purpose, and more discipline. My body might be tired, but my mindset overrides it instantly, forcing me into motion because I do not rely on energy. I rely on consistency built through a record pressure. The first rep is slow and controlled, breaking through stiffness and activating every muscle, setting a rhythm that will carry through the entire session. As the set builds, intensity rises, muscles tighten, breathing becomes heavier, but I maintain control because I have trained myself to perform under pressure. Pain spreads through every muscle involved, but I do not resist it. I accept it as part of the process, using it to drive each repetition forward. The silence around me amplifies every movement, every breath, every rep, creating a focus that cannot be matched during the day. Each repetition becomes sharper, more controlled, more aggressive as I push deeper into the set and force my body to adapt. Sweat begins to form, muscles burn, but my intensity does not drop, it increases, building momentum even in silence. Midnight Iron is not just a workout, it is a statement. A moment where discipline is proven when no one is watching. Under the dim lights of the night gym, everything becomes quieter, not just outside, but inside my mind. Because I enter a state where pressure is no longer noise, it is control, and I use it to sharpen every movement I make. The weight in front feels heavier at this hour, not because it changes, but because my awareness increases, and I respond by focusing deeper, locking into execution without hesitation. My grip tightens, my stance stabilizes, and I begin the first repetition with full control, because in silence, every mistake becomes louder, and I refuse to lose form. The movement is slow, intentional, precise, because at night speed is replaced by control, and control builds strength more than anything else. As the set continues, fatigue builds quietly without distraction, but I maintain rhythm because discipline does not depend on energy levels. Spreads through my muscles, but there is no reaction, only acceptance, because I understand that silence makes effort more pure and more effective. Each repetition becomes more focused, more controlled, more deliberate, as I push deeper into the set with no
environment disappears completely, leaving only the weight, the movement, and the mindset. Silent pressure is not about force, it is about control under silence, where discipline becomes the loudest force in the room.
The night deepens and I stay locked in, repeating movement after movement in a controlled rhythm. Because I understand that progress is not created in bursts. It is built through repetition, executed with discipline. The weight becomes part of the environment, no longer intimidating. Just something I must control repeatedly with precision and focus. My grip stays firm, my stance remains stable, and I execute every repetition with consistency. Because inconsistency breaks progress, and I refuse that completely. Each rep is slower, heavier, more intentional, forcing my muscles to adapt under sustained tension. Fatigue builds gradually, but I do not break rhythm. I continue moving because discipline overrides exhaustion. Pain increases, but I stay inside it, not avoiding it, not resisting it, just working through it one rep at a time. The silence of the night makes every movement feel deeper, more meaningful, more controlled. Each repetition becomes a cycle of focus and execution, repeating until strength is fully exhausted and rebuilt. Breathing stays steady, guiding every movement like a metronome of discipline. Dark reps is not about intensity spikes. It is about controlled repetition in darkness, where consistency builds real strength.
The moment I step into this set, everything slows down into a controlled rhythm where every movement is deliberate. Every action is precise, and every repetition is executed with purpose. Because I understand that night training is not about speed. It is about perfect execution under pressure. The weight in front of me feels heavier, not because it has changed, but because my focus has sharpened, and I respond by tightening every movement, eliminating any unnecessary motion. My grip locks in firmly, my stance stabilizes completely, and I begin the first repetition with full control, ensuring that every muscle is engaged properly. The first rep is slow and powerful, setting a rhythm that prioritizes control over speed, allowing me to maintain perfect form throughout the set. As the set continues, fatigue builds steadily, muscles tighten, breathing becomes heavier, but I maintain composure because discipline keeps execution stable. Pain spreads across every muscle, I do not react to it emotionally. I absorb it, using it to refine my movement and increase focus. Each repetition becomes sharper, more controlled, more precise, as I push deeper into the set and force my body to adapt under tension. My breathing remains steady, guiding every movement and maintaining rhythm even as intensity increases. The silence of the night surrounds me, amplifying every movement and keeping my focus locked in. Night execution is not about intensity alone. It is about mastering every repetition with control, discipline, and precision under silence.
The moment I enter the set, my mindset becomes heavier than the weight itself. Because I understand that strength begins in the mind and is executed through the body. And I align both completely for maximum output. The weight in front of me demands focus, discipline, and consistency. And I respond by executing each repetition with precision and intent. My grip tightens with purpose, my stance stabilizes, and I prepare for controlled execution, ensuring that every movement contributes to progress. The first repetition is slow, powerful, and stable, setting a rhythm that allows me to maintain intensity without losing control. As the set builds, fatigue increases, muscles tighten, breathing becomes heavier. But I remain composed because my mindset controls my performance. Pain spreads through every muscle, but I do not resist it. I accept it as part of the process and use it to drive each repetition forward. Each rep becomes more focused, more controlled, more aggressive as I push deeper into the set and force my system to adapt. My breathing remains steady, fueling each movement and maintaining rhythm even under pressure. The environment fades into darkness, leaving only the movement and the drive to continue pushing forward. Heavy mind state is not just strength. It is control, focus, and the ability to perform under pressure without breaking.
The moment I step deeper into the night, I enter a space where everything is silent, not just around me, but inside my mind. Because I eliminate distractions completely and focus only on execution, repetition, and controlled performance. The weight in front of me becomes the only thing that matters, demanding full attention and discipline. And I respond by locking in every movement with precision. My grip tightens, my stance stabilizes, and I initiate the first repetition with complete control, ensuring that every muscle is engaged properly. The first rep is slow and deliberate, breaking through stiffness and activating strength that builds with each movement. As the set continues, fatigue builds steadily, muscles tighten, breathing becomes heavier, but I maintain rhythm because consistency defines progress. Pain spreads through every muscle, but I remain calm, converting it into focus and using it to drive each repetition forward. Each repetition becomes more controlled, more focused, more aggressive as I push deeper into the set and eliminate weakness. My breathing stays steady, acting as a guide for every movement and maintaining rhythm, even under pressure. The silence becomes part of the workout, amplifying every movement and sharpening my focus. No noise zone is not about intensity alone. It is about complete focus, where nothing exists except the work being done.
The moment the night goes deeper, I push harder, because I understand that this is the time when discipline separates from excuses, when effort becomes real and results are built in silence. The weight feels heavier, the body feels slower, but I do not adjust my effort. I increase it, forcing my system to adapt under pressure. My grip locks in with strength, my stance stabilizes, and I begin to set with controlled aggression, ensuring that every repetition is executed with intent. The first rep is powerful and steady, setting a rhythm that carries through the entire set without losing control. As the set continues, fatigue reaches a higher level. Muscles burn, breathing becomes heavier, but I maintain composure. Pain spreads across every muscle, but I accept it, using it as fuel to drive each repetition forward with greater force. Each repetition becomes more aggressive, more focused, all controlled, as I push deeper into the set and force my system to operate beyond limits. My breathing remains steady, fueling each movement and maintaining rhythm even under extreme intensity. The gym feels empty, but the work feels louder, because every movement carries purpose and discipline. After hours, grind is not just training, it is proof of consistency, a moment where effort continues long after others have stopped. The moment I step into this final phase of the night session, everything becomes heavier. Not just the weight, but the effort itself. Because fatigue is already set in, and now every repetition demands more focus, more discipline, and more control than before. The silence around me amplifies every sensation, every breath, every movement. And I use that awareness to execute each repetition with precision. Because mistakes are louder in silence. And I refuse to break form. My grip tightens with intent. My stance stabilizes completely. And I begin the set with full control, ensuring that every movement is aligned with progress. The first repetition is slow and powerful, setting a rhythm that prioritizes control over speed, allowing me to maintain intensity without losing execution. As the set builds, fatigue becomes dominant. Muscles tighten, breathing becomes heavier. But I remain composed, because discipline overrides exhaustion. Pain spreads across every muscle involved, but I do not resist it. I accept it fully and use it to sharpen my focus. Each repetition becomes more deliberate, more controlled, more intense. As I push deeper into the set and force my system to adapt under pressure. My breathing remains steady, guiding each movement and maintaining rhythm even as intensity peaks. world around me fades completely, leaving only the movement and the effort required to continue. Pain in silence is not just discomfort. It is growth in its purest form, built through control, discipline, and relentless execution.
The moment I push into this set, I operate in a space where only effort exists, where strength is built quietly and progress is made without attention. Because I understand that the strongest foundations are built in the shadows. The weight becomes a constant force I must control repeatedly, and I respond with precision and discipline, ensuring that every repetition contributes to growth. My grip locks in firmly, my stance stabilizes, and I begin the movement with controlled aggression, executing each repetition with intent. The first repetition is steady and powerful, setting a rhythm that allows me to maintain intensity throughout the set. As fatigue builds, muscles tighten, breathing becomes heavier, but I maintain consistency, because consistency defines strength. Pain spreads across every muscle, but I do not react to it emotionally. I convert it into focus and continue pushing forward. Each repetition becomes more controlled, more precise, more aggressive, as I push deeper into the set and force my system to adapt. My breathing remains steady, fueling each movement and maintaining rhythm under pressure. The silence of the night surrounds me, reinforcing my focus and discipline. Shadow strength is not about recognition, it's about building power in silence, repetition after repetition, until strength becomes undeniable.
The moment I enter this final set, everything I've done throughout the session comes together. Every ounce of effort, every level of discipline, every bit of strength. Because this is where I finish what I started without compromise. The weight in front of me becomes the final challenge, demanding maximum output and full commitment. And I respond by executing each repetition with controlled aggression. My grip tightens, my stance stabilizes, and I prepare for peak performance, ensuring that every movement is executed with precision. The first repetition is powerful and steady, setting the tone for a finish that does not break under pressure. As the set continues, fatigue reaches its highest level, muscles burn intensely, breathing becomes heavy, but I maintain execution. Pain spreads through every muscle, but I do not slow down. I convert it into fuel, using it to push each repetition forward. Each repetition becomes more aggressive, more focused, more controlled, as I push deeper into the set and force my system to operate at maximum capacity. My breathing remains steady, even under extreme stress, allowing me to maintain rhythm and execution. Everything fades away except the movement, the effort, and the drive to complete the set. Final set, darkness is not just the end. It is a statement that no matter the fatigue, no matter the pressure, I finish with full intensity and complete control.